The Davidic dynasty was anchored by a promise of eternal kingship. By 2 Kings 11, this sprawling family tree is reduced to a single point of failure, an infant named Joash. The architect of this collapse, Queen Athaliah, initiated a systematic purge of rival claimants. Her primary targets were her own children and grandchildren, the next generations of the royal line. This wasn't a random act of cruelty, but a move of dynastic vengeance. Athaliah was an Omride princess from the northern kingdom. When the commander Jehu slaughtered her family in the north, she responded by attempting to extinguish David's dynasty in the south. The theological stakes were absolute. By targeting the house of David, Athaliah was effectively attempting to sever God's stated promise of an eternal throne. The survival of that promise now depended on calculated human logistics, while its eventual restoration would demand a total systemic reset of the nation's worship. Athaliah's reign was more than a political occupation. It was an ideological shift for the southern kingdom. She brought state-sponsored Baalism into the Judean court. These Canaanite idols in Jerusalem signaled the religious environment was being reshaped to match her heritage. For 7 years, this system remained the status quo. Athaliah ruled from the palace, while the true heir remained hidden and unknown. During these years, Athaliah commanded the full resources of the military and the state priesthood. To counter her, the Davidic line was represented by a single infant in a back room. This period forces a reconciliation between the certainty of a divine promise and the brutal, immediate reality of human vulnerability and unchecked idolatry. In this narrative, divine providence functions through the mechanism of human agency. The promise is preserved through physical human effort. As Athaliah's executioners moved through the palace, a woman named Jehosheba, the king's sister, stole the infant Joash away from the princes marked for death. The window for action was instantaneous. If Jehosheba waits to calculate the odds or the personal cost, the door closes on the dynasty forever. The text presents trust not as passive waiting, but as the catalyst for this life-threatening intervention. The execution of God's promise relied on the immediate and dangerous choices made by his people in the moment of crisis. By the 7th year, the priest Jehoiada began the transition from preservation to restoration. He approached the coup with the mindset of a tactician. This view of the historical Temple Mount clarifies the geography of the operation. Jehoiada had to bridge the gap between the temple complex and the adjacent royal palace. Jehoiada's plan centered on the military Sabbath rotation. He targeted 3 guard battalions to secure the site. In a standard rotation, 1 company stays to guard the palace, while 2 companies go off-duty, leaving the area. Jehoiada diverts them. He commands the 2 off-duty companies to remain on the grounds, moving them into the temple complex to triple his available force. This creates a final formation where 1 company isolates the palace, while 2 companies form a protective perimeter around the young king. This heavy security was designed to provide overwhelming force against any response from Athaliah and to ensure that no violence occurred within the sacred temple boundaries. The successful crowning of the king was the result of these meticulous tactical overrides. Divine preservation, in this account, is expressed through precise preparation. With the military perimeter secure, Jehoiada brings the boy forward and places the crown on his head. The physical coup is complete. But as the crown is placed, the text shifts focus toward a single, repeated concept, the covenant. Jehoiada places a physical copy of the covenant into the child's hands and mediates a 3-way pact between the Lord, the king, and the people. Why prioritize a renewal of the law in the middle of a military transition? The restoration of the throne would be a short-lived political shift if the underlying religious architecture of Baalism remained in place. To understand the coup, we must examine the 2 systems vying for control. Baalism is a transactional feedback loop. Human sacrifice acts as input to force a specific output. The covenant replaces this mechanical loop with relational trust, where no output is forced through ritual. Instead, the human party commits to obedience and alignment with God's character, trusting him for the provision of their needs. One system seeks to enslave the gods to human will, the other seeks to align human will with God. Following the covenant ceremony, the people march to the temple of Baal. They shatter the idols, tear down the altars, and execute the priest. This destruction was an act of structural necessity. The Davidic king cannot be grafted back onto the throne while the nation still functions under the transactional logic of Baalism. The anatomy of this coup reveals that divine preservation is realized through active human obedience, and that true covenantal relationship requires the total eradication of manipulative religion.